Welcome back to the second lecture in Module 1 of this online teaching and learning Moodle Sandbox. In the previous lecture, I tried to set the stage for some of the research that's been done that helps us, gives us some concrete things to think about, both in terms of the way we're facilitating online environments and the ways in which some of our presence is built into the very design itself. So with that in mind, I wanted to give a little bit more detail to you all in terms of this piece of design, and I want to touch on two separate frameworks, ways of thinking about design that you may already be familiar with and likely you're already using elements of in your own teaching. But just again, to give you a sense of some of the research that's been done in terms of designing online learning environments. So the two pieces I'm going to be covering in this lecture are backward design and the universal design for learning, or thinking more inclusively about our pedagogy as we design it. This idea of backward design, right? So this is this principle of instructional design introduced by Wiggins and McTeague. And essentially the claim or the principle being that if you begin with the end in mind, if you know what it is that you want your students to know, then you're able to think about, you're able to then think about, well, how will I know if they know it, right? What are they going to be able to do to demonstrate and to help me see that they understand it, right? Not just know it and can repeat it back, but that they have a deeper sense of understanding in terms of how it works, right? They've had some kind of critical engagement with this thing that I want them to learn. And then when you're able to identify what it is that they can do to, show you how they understand it, then you can think about the kinds of activities or the ways of engagement that you might want to design, right? So here I've sort of used that as a model. If you go to the Moodle site, I've also linked to a white paper on this understanding by design. Also, sort of really quickly and at a very high level, I wanted to talk a little bit about universal design, or thinking more inclusively about our pedagogy, right? So as you're designing, you're using this backward design approach, you're keeping the end in mind. You're also aware, I'm sure, of the diversity that is within your class, right? All of us are teaching students who are coming from very different places, who are bringing different interests and needs, and ways of learning, or ways that they've been ways of learning that have been facilitated for them, and ways of learning that they've still yet to really wrestle with. And so one of the things that we also want you to keep in mind in designing an online space is it's helpful to think through this inclusive pedagogy that is referred to in many spaces as the universal design for learning. So essentially, what they mean by that is trying to make sure that all students, right, have some way of entering in and thriving in your learning environment, right? So you're making design choices that make things not only accessible, but exciting and challenging and motivating for your students. So again, at a very high level, because you could do a lot of work unpacking any of these, but essentially what we're wanting you to think about in the design process is thinking about, this leans into research that comes out of neuroscience, but what they're looking at are the networks, the different ways and places in the brain where certain information is being processed and used. So they're asking, or they're inviting people who are designing to think about the ways in which the brain has these recognition networks. So the what of our learning, right? This is how we're presenting information in our courses. Are we only using text? Are we only using voice? There's a lot of multimedia that's built in now that we're in online settings. You can use clips, you can use other people other than yourself talking. So this is just trying to be aware of the fact that people receive and recognize, perceive information in a variety of ways. The second network is this sort of strategic network. So what are the skills and the strategies, the how of our learning that we're trying to convey? So here, this is pushing us to think about how we provide multiple opportunities for students to show us what they know. So we've thought about how we're presenting our information. We also want to think about how we're receiving information from them. Are we only asking for written papers? Are we allowing for other ways for students to demonstrate to us that they know or that they've had a critical engagement with this, with the content of the course? The third network that the neuroscience points to is this affective, right? This part of the brain that deals with the caring and the prioritizing. So this is really where we think about why students learn. And this is where, as I mentioned earlier, things like minimizing risk and increasing motivation, connecting to things that students are excited about. These are all going to be important elements in how we connect and how the students connect with the content, connect with us, connect with each other. And so this thinking intentionally in our design about how we are minimizing risk so that we can increase interest and engagement with the course. So again, that's thinking about the what of our learning. Are we, as the teacher, conveying the material in a variety of ways to reduce barriers for people's understanding and access to it? Or increase access? Are we thinking about different skills and strategies that students might be using and looking across the spectrum of the ways that they might be trying to convey to us that they have engaged the material? And then are we using this design to think about the ways that we're connecting with the things that are motivating for students? Are we thinking about addressing some of the risk and some of the concern that they may have, particularly in an online environment, but anytime we're teaching, right? So those are just, in a nutshell, some of the tenets of universal design for learning that I wanted to share. There's more I'll link to on the Moodle page if you'd like to read some more about that particular approach. But hopefully this overview, very short overview of backward design and universal design, will help you think a little bit more about some of the scaffolding that may help in your design of your online learning environment.